Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Emma and I make art videos, and for today's video I am drawing a portrait of Kat Von D. And I decided to draw this portrait because I had an image of her in my reference images folder, and I'm a fan of Kat Von D. I like her makeup line because it's all vegan and cruelty free, and her style is just very similar to my own style. And the makeup is high quality, and she's a really talented tattoo artist, so that's why I decided to draw her. I am working on some Canson drawing paper, and I'm just using an HB pencil, and then later on I use a 2B pencil just to go in with the darker areas. And before I kind of talk more about this portrait, I did want to remind you all that I am on Patreon. I feel like I haven't mentioned this in a while, but I'm still on Patreon. I've got a couple of different options there. I did recently change a couple of things, but overall it is very similar. So if you would like to support me and get some goodies in return, you can do that over at patreon.com/mxmaree. And if you haven't heard, I've recently gotten into live streaming over on Twitch, and I've mainly been streaming games just because it's really fun, but hopefully eventually I'll get into doing regular art streams. They definitely take a lot more effort, so I don't know, I need to figure out what I'm doing with, you know, YouTube and all of that. Like, I haven't really seen an improvement with my YouTube videos, so I don't know what's going to happen there yet. I mean, at the moment I'm still doing weekly videos, but I don't know. We'll see. If I make any changes, I will let you all know. My idea would be to basically upload videos when I've finished a piece of art, so I wouldn't have that pressure of finishing it within a week, but at the same time that will probably hurt my channel even more in the long run. But also, I'm not really seeing an improvement, so is it really going to make a difference? I don't know. I still need to think about it and just figure out my life and my weeks and figure out what I can do. But I will let you know of any changes if that happens. So for this drawing, I am starting out like I do with any other drawing. I am using a light hand and just working on the proportions and making sure I've got everything in the right spot. Because if I don't, this makes it a lot easier to erase rather than, you know, going in with a heavy hand with a lot of detail. So at this point I am pretty happy with everything, so I'm going in with a little bit of shading just to make sure that it is going to be right, because sometimes the shading actually changes what it looks like. You might think that you have something wrong, but when you shade it in, it actually is right. So I put that in just to make sure that that was all good, and then once I think everything's fine, I go in with a darker pencil. And when I'm working on a portrait, I do like to draw the eyes first, just because they're one of my favorite things to draw on a face. And I think the eyes are very important because they show a lot of emotion, and if the eyes are off, it can make the whole thing look off. And I mean, that goes for, you know, the nose and the lips as well, and the face shape, but I feel like the eyes are one of the most important parts about drawing a face. And with this reference image, I actually made it so that Kat is looking towards the viewer. In the photograph, she's looking slightly off, so she's not actually looking at the camera. But for this portrait, I wanted her to be looking at the viewer. So that was a very simple change, and one that I could do where it still looks like her, you know, like if you're drawing a portrait and the eyes are looking a different way, you want to change that, that's a really easy thing to change, and it's not going to necessarily take away from that person's likeness. So I made that little adjustment, and apart from that, I pretty much tried to copy the photograph as much as possible. I'm going for a realistic look, but not a like hyper realistic look. So I want it to look like her, but it's still, you know, somewhat in a more simplistic style. Like, you know, I do somewhat heavy line work, and later on it's not as noticeable, but I still kind of add that element. The hair was fun but kind of a struggle to work on as well, because she's got black hair in this photograph. Drawing black hair is quite interesting because, you know, you don't necessarily think there's going to be a lot of highlights, but there were certain areas on like the bun area and on the top of her head that did have highlighted areas. So you'll see here I'm going in with sort of a heavy hand. It's not as dark as it needs to be, but I'm just kind of mapping it out, making sure that it's going to look okay. And once I've done that, then I go in with my really dark pencil and really darken up those areas. And for this, you don't necessarily want to be drawing every individual strand of hair. I'm kind of just drawing it in chunks and just getting the right shape of where the highlighted area is. And then I do go over the highlighted area with a light layer just because it's not completely white. It's still, you know, black hair, it's still quite dark, but it still gives it that shiny look. So that's kind of my approach for the hair. I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out, but I'm actually really happy with how it looks. I think it looks very effective, and the lighting on here, basically when I'm filming it, it's a little bit different than in real life, so it looks a little bit patchy on the video, but when you see the end result, it'll look a lot better because the lighting will be, it'll be better. So it looks slightly patchy right now, but trust me, it looks better at the end. And I also had to be aware of putting my hand on her face when I was working on the hair. It was quite difficult. I should have worked on the hair first. I mean, that is the one area that I put a lot of detail in first, but I'd already put in a decent amount of detail on the face because that is the most important part. So it was a little bit difficult having her hair on the left hand side with me being right-handed, but it worked out. I had to fix up the details on her face after working on the hair because the face was a little bit too light compared to the darkness of the hair. So I just go in and pretty much darken up everything that I've put down on the face already, and I add a little bit more detail, but most of it stays pretty much the same. So I just darken up the eye makeup. I needed to add some eyelashes, add a little bit more detail to the eyebrows, but apart from that, it's pretty much just going over what I've already got. So that's why you should always start off lighter, because you can always go darker, but can't go the other way. So, you know, once I put the hair in and everything, I knew everything looked right. I just needed to basically just add more detail to the face, and that's pretty much it. She was wearing a black top in this photograph, but I didn't want to colour that in because it was just going to use a lot of lead pencil, and I kind of like that line work style. I do like to add that into my more realistic portraits, so I think it works well. And lastly, after working on the lips, I do draw in her neck tattoos, and I do them pretty rough. I didn't want to go in with tons of detail, I just wanted them to like be there, but I think it's effective, and I'm very happy with how this portrait turns out. So if you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel either. That way you won't miss any of my videos, or hopefully you won't. You know, press that notification bell as well, and make sure you turn notifications on. And I think YouTube might be doing something else, like a paid thing. I don't know if you can do that yet on my channel, but if you can, that is always appreciated. And yes, I think that's all of the self-promo that I can think of right now. Oh yeah, and follow me on Twitch if you want to catch me live streaming on there. It's just games at the moment, but hopefully I'll be doing art streams as well, so that's just at twitch.tv/MXMaree. Okay, that's going to be enough. So anyway, I'm just doing some finishing touches on the neck tattoo, and then this piece is done. So hopefully you enjoyed today's video. Here is the finished drawing, and I will hopefully see you all in my next video.